of interest, and I will just give a wee introduction here on what we're going to do today. We have a big day in front of us, and I'm sure that everyone is keen to crack on. What I plan to do is run through the outline of the agenda first up. After that, we will hear from the long-term plan team about what is in the draft long-term plan. Then it is on to the amendments. After that, we will be adjourning the meeting until next week when we come back to do the final rates figure and to debate the consultation document to agree on. In terms of the agenda for today and how it will work through the 120 odd amendments, it is as follows. Staff will present the draft long-term plan as it currently sits. We will then consider 3 groups of amendments in one session. The amendments that are just for noting, that staff have advised that the project raised by a councillor is already in their long-term plan. B, amendments that ask staff to report back on within the first year on options, costs and time frames, primarily for considering it in next year's annual plan. And C, amendments that ask for a substantial report to be compiled. So we will need to get back to the Chief Executive to provide us with a report costs before deciding to commission the report. We will then work through the last 40 odd substantial amendments. The first group affect the citizens and community group of services. The second group affect the infrastructure and regulatory group of services. We will have questions on any amendment to the group manager or heads of service. Then there will be one debate per group, and then we will vote on each amendment one by one. Where amendments are contradictory, the one proposing the reduction or is closest to the status quo will go first, with the ones increasing or changing services go as foreshadowed motions. The idea here is that if the majority vote to reduce or maintain something, it cannot logically also vote to increase or change it at the same time. This is as far as we will go at this stage, and the meeting will adjourn. Then we will come back to finalise the draft long-term plan and send it out the door. Before I ask that staff presenting come to the table and take their seats at the front table, I want to say a massive thank you to the hundreds of hours that have been put in to getting to this point. Can I especially thank Mary for her support and guidance through this process? And can I also thank Lynn and the long-term plan team who have kept this process moving forward and got us to the point that we're at today. And also thank you to all the staff who have answered the myriad of questions and provided advice for us to help what we are considering in front of us today. Over to you, Mary. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I just also want to add to the acknowledgement of thanking the councillors for your participation and the Mayor in this process. It's been a long and lengthy process. So thank you for your input and your participation in this all year. We are now going to move where we will invite Peter, Lynn and Russell up to the table, and they will walk through the process to date and the documents that you are considering today.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Look, I'm just going to provide a brief context. I realise that you've all been here right through the whole process. It is largely for the benefit of the observers and those from outside council who may be catching up with how this works for the first time. I'll keep it fairly brief. It's also a bit of a refresher because this process started actually back in March of last year. So history has overtaken us a little bit. To start from first principles, LTPs, and this will play through today, are based on an incredibly complex set of guidelines. They're not a free-range document. The Local Government Act is one of the most prescriptive pieces of legislation anywhere in the world. For a reason, it's based on transparency. But the 300 odd pages that we need to comply with are heavily observed and audited by Wellington, by central government. not just the Office of the Auditor General, but also DIA and other departments, including how they play out in our reporting. So in other words, it's a demanding set of rules, and you throw in three waters and it gets complicated. There was also a 10-page letter of expectation from the council last year that set out very clear guidelines on priorities for content, but also how the process should work. Council, F&P and Audit and Risk Committee have been receiving regular updates ever since. So what does it mean? In practical terms, the infrastructure strategy, asset plans, activity plans were in draft form in July last year. Since then, as the letter requested, Council has been working with staff through a long series of briefings to get to where we are today. There have been some wins. What matters most, the pre-engagement survey around the city was one of the largest surveys we've ever done, and it was successful in terms of gauging what the community's priorities look like. But there have been also hurdles. As you well know, external factors, inflation, insurance, interest, are affecting all councils. That's across the country at the moment. So this has been by no means a normal LTP in any respect. But then again, that's precisely what LTPs are for, to assess the situation, stand back and gauge where you're at. Despite all this, we got through to mid-December with a pretty clear steer on what to build between then and now as a draft LTP. And we hope we've turned that into a useful suite of documents for you. I will stress that they are detailed, but that is driven by the legislation and the requirements of what is effectively a $10 billion budget. Audit New Zealand has been auditing the content and process since mid-January, in fact, starting in December. That's a process that's ongoing and ongoing with a lot of goodwill. So the key elements of the guidance that we got from the briefings can be summed up really in 4 dot points. A joint development process to be run in the second half of last year, which we feel that we did. A capital program, the request was very clear and repeated many times. A capital program that is deliverable across all years of the LTP. In other words, finally putting the bit between the teeth and confronting the issue of that huge bow wave that nearly every council in New Zealand faces. And smoothing that out has been a key part of this LTP, and I credit both the councillors and the capital program team for success there. A desire to maintain levels of service or protect what we have, and direction on asset recycling were the 4 main pillars of what we used to build this LTP. We have heads of service here to respond to questions that might arise. So Andrew on capital development, David on the IS, and key operational heads of service are in support as well. But with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to pass to Russell to step through an overview of our financial position before we move into the detail of the proposed LTP.
Thank you. Fire away.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor, councillors, Peter, for the introduction. Unlike probably all councils within New Zealand, there's substantial challenges facing Christchurch City Council from a financial perspective and operational perspective in developing this long-term plan, as we look particularly in year one, the coming year, for that increased costs of inflation, interest rates, debt servicing, insurance, challenging asset renewal requirements, and on top of that we have, as Peter has outlined, a number of local government reform initiatives that are in front of us as well. Christchurch had the extra challenge of the funding for Takaha major infrastructural asset. The government funding has been used, so now we're moving into council's own funds, so that the cost of that is significant uplift in the funding requirements for council. In developing the budgets, if you like, significant work, as Peter has outlined, significant work across the entire organisation, heads of service, budget managers, looking to ensure that we can only spend what we need to spend. So significant work has been done and redone, looking to ensure that we provide the balance between financial resilience and being able to ensure that the products and services that we produce can be produced. We developed the financial strategy. The financial strategy looks at how council can fund those services and activities and capital works across the long-term plan, and it does do that balance. But it's a moving piece. You know, if one aspect of that moves, it puts pressure on the other. So it's quite a balancing act. But we've landed at a position where that currently is in balance. The impact is that there's an average rates increase to all existing ratepayers of 15.84 for year one of the long-term plan. That's next year. That is then 8.2 the following year, and then about 4% declining for each of the 10 years following that. In developing the financial strategy, there's a number of aspects that we take into account. We look at our debt headroom. It's a significant aspect of it. And a debt headroom means how much space do we need to maintain or leave available between what we could borrow and what we plan to borrow for those unforeseen events. The financial strategy is recommending that increase from 400 million to 600 million, and the strategy has been developed on that aspect. There's a number of factors that we consider to ensure that the financial resilience is in place, a number of treasury benchmarks, and we're all well with, councillors currently all well within those aspects, so that's strong from that point of view. There's one benchmark where we don't meet, and it's more of a technical matter, so I just outline that now just so that there's clarity around that, and that's the debt servicing benchmark, where it's borrowing costs as a percentage of revenue. That must be less than 10%. Currently it's sitting at just over 12, and then gradually going down to a minimal just over 10 by the end of the LTP. The reason for this is that there's about a third of the interest costs that relate to on lending to subsidiaries, and the definition of this benchmark, which is set by our government, doesn't permit council to use the revenues from that to offset. So in a cash terms we meet it, but by the clear definition of the benchmark we don't. But that's the only one where we don't, and I just highlight that for council. As part of the QA exercise that we undertake, and you can imagine that's quite extensive, we've need to amend a couple of items within the CD, a consultation document, particularly around the options. There's two. One is the building for the climate challenge fund, and the intent in that initiative is that the matching as best as possible the current and future ratepayers for accepting part of the challenge of the impacts from climate change. So we're looking at, rather than borrowing, which was the initial thinking, borrowing for the fund and then servicing that debt, using that debt servicing is actually would create about $1.8 million to build a fund for. So not borrowed at the outset, but build up to that. The other is in the rating for renewals option, where the proposal was to stall rating for renewals by 2 years. And so there's a target as set out in the financial strategy of moving rating from renewals. So what that means is currently renewal funding is the mix of debt and rates. We're transitioning from funding it by debt to funding it by rates, being that renewal is about 80% of depreciation, so it's deemed more of an operational cost as opposed to a capital cost. So there's a strategy is outlining that we're going to continue on that path by 2031. Within the consultation document, one of the options was to pause that for 2 years, given the high interest rates in the high rates increase for year 1 and 2. Like I say, the QA work that we've undertaken has identified that the amount that we specified was too high, so we need to reduce that. So we initially anticipated that it'd be about a 3.5% possible. For if we pause for 2 years, 3.5% decrease in year one, that will be, proposal is to be that would be 1.8%. Does mean the budget would be unbalanced for 3 years, but we're still working through the ramifications of some of that. That said, that's fairly much the things I wanted to cover, Mr. Mayor.
You're good? So we'll just go to that one. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. So I'll now invite Michael Wilkes, Chair of Audit and Risk Committee, to present the committee's recommendations. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. The Audit and Risk Management Committee has been informed of progress, risks and so on over the past period of time. And in your own attachment to the agenda, attachment E, you'll see our recommendation from our meeting of last week. We have reviewed various documentation that provides the basis for the adoption of the 2024-34 long-term plan by the council. That documentation is listed in your attachment. It included draft consultation documents, financial strategy, infrastructure strategy, checklists and sign-offs by management, including on significant assumptions. At our most recent meeting last week, we also had the opportunity to ask questions in respect to these documents of the subject matter experts, which was a very valuable exercise. And having reviewed and discussed the draft documents, we resolved to recommend to the council that, in the opinion of the committee, an appropriate process has been followed in the preparation of the long-term plan for 2024-34 information. We did note at the time of our meeting last week, however, that the council had elected that the consultation document wouldn't be audited, and that's recorded in our resolution. I've since been advised that the council has reversed that decision and it will now be audited. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, we now have Audit New Zealand to present. Invite them to the table, please.
Good morning, everyone. My job today is to give you a high-level overview of the progress we're making in terms of auditing the underlying information and the consultation document. The audit work on the underlying information and assumptions is almost complete. We still have some work to complete on the revaluation movements, inflation, and the climate change assumptions, which are taken through your underlying information. In terms of the financial strategy and the underlying activity plans, we've completed our review on these documents. The key matter that we're still working through is considering renewals in relation to depreciation and in relation to remaining theoretical lives. We're also considering the strength of Council's approach in scoping and costing selected projects going forward. In terms of the consultation document, as Michael Wilkes has indicated, we received the consultation document for review for audit opinion last week Friday, and we've started the process of looking at this document to ensure that it is consistent with the underlying information and making sure that it complies with key legislative requirements. The time frame in terms of completing our review from a detailed perspective within Audit New Zealand is the end of February. We have a hot review scheduled for the 1st of March with the Office of the Auditor General, and we hope to be able to provide you with opinion in time for the adoption. Obviously, subject to any significant changes that could be made to underlying information or consultation document during the course of today. Thank you very much.
That's it. Well done. Thank you very much. Right. Councillors may have the chance to ask any question of clarification of staff, and note this is for clarification only, not a debate on the LTP. So have we got any questions on what we have heard so far this morning? Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you. It is for Russell and the team. And I suspect Bruce may need to answer it too. It was just around your comments around the debt servicing benchmark, and I completely get the on lending and the sort of CCHL environment. If we were to exclude that, what does that number look like in terms of around that benchmark on being within that? I'm just conscious of everything else was within the parameters, but debt servicing is obviously one of those challenges. Can you talk us through that, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, great question. Thank you, Councillor. I can't give the number off the top of my head, but we could work through that and let you know. But like I said, all the other benchmarks, we are well within the covenant. So, yeah, we'll work that out and let you know what it would
something
be.
we circle back to next week.
Yeah,
That'd
For
be
sure.
great.
Can
Great,
do.
thank
Yep.
you. Cheers.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison Hunt, then Councillor Johansson. Have you got one?
Mr. Mayor, is this where we ask questions of all staff about our amendments, or?
No.
Correct. Cool. That's fine.
Did you have a question? Yep.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure if it's the role of Audit New Zealand, but I just was interested to know whether or who looks at the content of the capital program, and in particular the transparency around the program level budgets, and whether there's any, and also how the capital program is presented in the consultation document as to the adequacy of the information for people to be able to make submissions.
Yes, we do look at that information. We we look at the processes that the council has followed in order to make those decisions. We look at the readability of the information contained within those documents, and we ensure that they comply with the legislative requirements in that perspective.
How we compare in terms of the program budgets, in terms of things that the public can't see that is going to get done, but is hidden, or sorry, is not explicitly part of the capital program, but is hidden in a program level budget
Compared to,
other councils?
I
or-
wouldn't be able to comment on that.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay. I mean, it's just a question that came up through our process, is how does the community get visibility of the program level things that we're doing in the LTP, given how much is in there?
Perhaps we can have that discussion when we're discussing the consultation document and what detail needs to be in that. So that will be a later discussion rather than today.
But the key thing is Audit New Zealand have not picked up any concerns with the capital program.
That's right. Thank you.
We're still in the process of reviewing, so the audit is still ongoing. So we're looking at your consultation document from a readability perspective at the moment.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Templeton.
Thanks so much. I'm just wondering if, I'm not quite sure who this is for, but what impact the asset management plans and the information that we have on our assets, which is said to be not the best currently, has an impact on the LTP process and the information we've had, and what risks there are around that?
Sorry, I should start.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's a high risk that we're working through at the moment, making sure that the renewals and the judgments around renewals is appropriate. So it is a high risk item at the moment. So we're working through how those decisions were undertaken, whether or not that provides sufficient information for us to be able to say that the renewals program is appropriate.
Yeah. And if you're not certain that enough information is being provided to you to make sure those renewals programs are appropriate, do you look at the information that might have been provided to councillors or not for our decision making, as opposed to just your, Yeah,
we look at all the information that's available within council for us to be able to make that judgment.
Yeah.
So it may not be a straight comparison. It may be that there's additional work that's been done, or committees formed, or alternative sources of information that we can look at.
Yeah.
Should we reach the point of not being able to determine whether or not that renewals program is appropriate, then that would result in amendments to our opinions.
Okay. And what could those amendments entail?
They could entail an emphasis of matter where we indicate, when you're reading this consultation document, please ensure that you understand that there's a high risk of uncertainty related to the renewals program. Or if it is significant enough, we could raise a qualification, which would be, we don't believe that, or we are unable to determine whether or not this renewals program is appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor MacDonald.
Probably along a similar vein to Sarah, but I'm just wondering in terms of, and I know we traversed it at Audit and Risk the other day, but it's probably good to do it publicly here as well. In terms of the asset management issues we've talked about, it's fair to say though that you'll also be looking at the work we had independently done around Three Waters and roading, which indicated, or transport, which indicated they're actually incredibly well managed.
Yeah.
So there'll be some stuff around the peripheral which you work through, but that will be considered in your review, won't it?
Yes, it will.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, with that, I will now move recommendations 1 and 2 that we received.
Excuse me, I did have a question. Did have my hand up. Sorry, Mayor.
Sorry, mate, you go if you like.
Thank you. Just to clarify, and it's really one for the public. So at the moment, we've got an estimated 53.6 increase over the 10-year period. So that works out an average of 5.36 per year. So I know that we're starting with a high number and then it's designed to go down. But there can be adjustments to the level of rates if something occurs. So there can be adjustments. So the overall 10-year period, we could actually have higher rates than planned. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes.
Yep. Thank you. That's all.
Sorry.
Okay.
So be clarified in an annual plan.
That's correct.
Won't be just
That's the plan
random
that we're
each-
projecting now. Each year,
Yep.
when we do an annual plan, so the numbers can go up or down in each of those years. So this is the plan as we see things as of today. Yep.
Yep, and that's just that. I think it's very important for the public to know that this is the plan as per today. But as we go through the 10-year period, that there may be changes made by councillors or by necessity, and so that may actually be higher. I very much doubt it's ever gone lower. But I just think it's important for the public to be aware of that. Thank you.
Thanks very much. You got another?
Yes, that's just through you, Mr. Mayor. Just an answer to the question that Councillor MacDonald asked previously. Bruce has very quickly provided me some information. So yes, in each of the years we are under the benchmark of 10, ranging from about 9.7 actually down to 8.7 in the latter years, apart from year 4 of the plan where it's 10.1. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that. Right, Councillor Johansson.
Sorry, just one quick question. The CPMS sheets, are they available to us? When does the CPMS sheets get produced? Or is it all just online now?
Andrew's coming
So
down.
So just to clarify, can you say terms in full so the public and the rest of the
Right,
audience
so there's a
understand?
capital program management sheet, I think it's called, or CPMS, and it's a really good overview of budget and just project description, and so it gives quite a lot of good detail, and quite often that will refer to other schedules or spreadsheets of program works. So it's quite a useful tool to be able to understand in more depth what each capital project is.
Yes, so Councillor Johansson's referring to some outputs from the project management system that the project managers use to manage their projects. We haven't produced those for a little while now because we've got other ways of providing that information through the quite comprehensive schedules that we've provided in support of this LTP, combined with the interactive OrbViz tool as well. So there are other ways to produce that information, and through our regular reporting to Finance and Performance Committee, especially with the strategic projects and the watch list, we provide another level of detail for those more important projects. And at any time we can provide you with specific information on a nominated project.
Right, can move along. Tyler, you got a question?
I'm just wondering if I ask about the overarching capital program now or in step 10 in our run sheet.
It's unclear what the question is, but this is actually a discussion
document,
about
right.
the information that's been provided to date.
To date.
For
Right.
both the audit risk committee and also Audit New Zealand, and also the overview. But so if it's a matter-specific detail, it would be better to ask it in the next session when we're going through those.
Thanks, Mary. I'll ask them.
Thank you very much. Right. I'll now move recommendations 1 and 2 that we receive the information from audit and risk recommendations. Jake has indicated that he's happy to second it. Is there any debate? Right, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Thank you, that is carried. Now, I'll now move to that we suspend standing orders so that we can deal with councillor amendments. There is no debate on this, so can I please have a seconder, Councillor Templeton? Thank you very much. Okay, so now I will move that we...
To put it to the vote.
We do put it to the vote? Oh, sorry, vote, yes. I'll put that vote. All of those in favour? Against? Thank you very much. Carried. Sorry, that's my mistake. Right. I will now move that we provisionally adopt the information and technical documents. This is to get the draft long-term plan on the table. That is all. So we can then deal with amendments. So can I please have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Cotter. So we don't vote on that. But so we are now going to take 20 minutes. So we'll say 25 past 10. Back here, please, so that we can get our ducks in a row for the amendment recommendations. Thank you very much.
There's